Assalamualaikum and welcome back to my channel. I'm still getting used to that. So today I'm going to touch on a little bit of a sensitive topic. I'm going to be talking about drinking alcohol and how I became sober as a revert Muslim. Now, while this is something that unfortunately a lot of reverts do deal with because a lot of us did drink alcohol in our life before Islam, I was actually really surprised at the number of born Muslims, aka people who have been Muslim their whole life, how many of them deal with issues with alcohol. And I think it's just a part of being in this Western society. Alcohol has become super normalized. Going out and drinking alcohol is very much a part of the social experience, and I think it's very hard. At least I've experienced a lot of challenges teasing those two apart, like still being social in Western society minus the alcohol. I do think things are definitely getting better because there is this movement towards drinking less alcohol, even for people who aren't doing it for religious purposes, but more for health purposes. I think I've been sober for easily over 2 years. So we'll start at the beginning. Prior to converting to Islam, I wasn't like someone who drank in high school, even though I went to high school in Puerto Rico and the drinking age there is 16. Yes, I had tried alcohol, but it wasn't until college that I really was introduced to drinking culture. Astaghfirullah. Now, I wouldn't call myself like an alcoholic. I don't necessarily think I was dependent on alcohol or like addicted to it. But I did drink like 3 times a week. And when I did drink, it wasn't just like 1 drink, 2 drinks. I drank a lot. It was a different time, y'all. I'm a changed woman. Naturally, it was difficult for me to let go of alcohol. That was something that was very integrated in my social life. It's something I did a lot. And it's something that I genuinely enjoyed. I was never someone that drank things I didn't like. I was not someone that would just throw back shots of vodka. Like, I was not that kind of person. I really enjoyed cocktails and made it a lot more difficult to let it go because it wasn't something that was like disgusting to me. I converted to Islam knowing I wasn't fully ready to take on all the obligations of being a Muslim. Like, I knew I was not going to be perfect, but I became Muslim anyways. That's something I'm going to talk about in a separate video because it's actually the question I get asked the most. Like, when is the right time to convert? A lot of people have this mindset that they have to be this perfect Muslim. Personally, I don't believe in that. I think being a bad Muslim is better than not being Muslim at all. But that's a topic for another video, InShaAllah. I used to like to consider myself a tank, meaning I wasn't a lightweight. Like, I was someone who never got hungover, had never like vomited or passed out or blacked out or anything from alcohol. Like, I kept myself under control, but I did drink a lot. I actually started noticing during COVID, I guess because I was drinking less, I wasn't drinking 3 times a week anymore, my tolerance really changed to the point where I started noticing alcohol had more and more of an effect on me. I'd wake up the next morning feeling really bleh, and that's not something that had ever happened before. So I was already starting to develop negative feelings towards alcohol because before it had always been great. Like, I had never had any bad experiences. And a couple weeks prior to my conversion, I had a night where I drank a lot. I remember being so out of it and feeling so sick. And that night I ended up going home and I ended up like vomiting for the first time. I had been drinking for like, 4 years at that point. I had never ever thrown up due to drinking. That was the first time, and that was really scary to me. And I hated it, like, obviously. I woke up the next morning so hungover. And then I was like, it's like alcohol started to slowly not become fun anymore. SubhanAllah, honestly, like, I think that was really Allah's way of like slowly prepping me to want to quit. So I still drank here and there, but again, each time I drank, it got worse and worse. I was feeling sicker and sicker. It was affecting me more and more, and I would get really hungover the next day. I couldn't hold my alcohol as well. I would, get home, throw up, and it was just not fun anymore. Like, I didn't, and I started looking back at college, all the people who drank around me, they were used to that experience with alcohol. And I'm like, why would y'all do this to yourselves? Like, it's not fun at that point. I think the final push, it was New Year's Eve, and I bought like these 2 bottles of champagne, and yeah, I went off. I had work the next morning at 8 a.m. I don't know why they told me to come into work on New Year's Day, but there I was. I felt horrible, and I hated how I felt. I hated that I felt so sick and so nauseous and so dizzy, and I was throwing up. And again, it was just this progression of it getting worse and worse and worse, and it affecting me more and more and more. SubhanAllah, honestly, when I look back on it, I feel like Allah really is the best of planners, and through that process made it easier on me. So I remember on New Year's Day, I was like, I'm done. I'm not drinking anymore. And it was primarily for health reasons. Like, I want to say it was Islamic reasons, but that would be a lie. Obviously, I'm at a point now where I don't drink anymore for Islamic reasons. But at that time, it really was health reasons. I just didn't like how it was affecting me. I didn't like how I was losing control over my body. I felt like I could really feel myself poisoning myself. And that was something I had never felt in my earlier years of drinking. And yeah, it just disgusted me. I was like, I don't need this to enjoy my life. This is not fun. So from that day, I officially made the decision to stop alcohol for good, primarily for health reasons, but also because I knew as a Muslim, I shouldn't be drinking anyways. And by that point, I had just realized I don't really need this anymore. I had already had plenty of fun the year previous to that, not drinking. And that's when I noticed my issue wasn't so much dependency on alcohol for social purposes. I mean, I did have that association of like wanting to be sipping on something, having a cup in my hand while being in a social setting. But it's not like I needed it, like liquid courage, to be like social or anything. I noticed it really was like a habit thing, like a craving almost. And I really craved the taste of alcohol. I know not a lot of people relate to that, but I know there are a lot of people who do. And so I think that this is where it starts to really pertain to Muslims specifically, because obviously health-wise, I think a lot of people would agree it's not good to overindulge on alcohol. I mean, you should not be getting blackout drunk. People don't like the feeling of being hungover the next morning anyways. You're like poisoning your body. We all know. Like, if you've drank like that, you know what it feels like. You know it sucks. And so for a lot of people who aren't doing it for religious reasons, the solution for them is probably just cutting back on their alcohol. But in my mind, I kind of was like, at that point, I'm drinking so little that I'm not getting the effects of being drunk and feeling buzzed and like loosening up and having a good time and whatever. But I am drinking enough that it's going to affect me as a Muslim. It's going to affect my salah. It's going to invalidate my prayers for 40 days. That was just not worth it to me at that point. And I really want to reiterate that for a second. In order for drinking to give you all those feel-good feelings, you have to drink a lot. And when you drink a lot, it poisons your body, literally. And you feel sick and you feel hungover. Don't you hate that, right? But at the same time, all it takes is one sip and boom, like your salah is invalid for 40 days and you still have to pray. You're just getting no rewards for it. That doesn't sound like a very good trade-off to me. Like, I don't know, I'm a cost-benefit analysis person. And I was like, that's just not, the math is not mathing at that point. So I want to share some advice as to how I got to where I am now. I understand that that advice is not going to apply to everyone. It really depends on what your relationship with alcohol looks like. But InShaAllah, I hope it helps some people who maybe are coming from the same place I was. So there's a couple things I changed. One, I changed who I surrounded myself with. I had a lot of friends at the time where the only time I would see them was at the club. Of course, I gave those friends the chance to hang out in alternative settings, but that didn't work for everyone. I did notice once I made the decision to stop drinking alcohol, some friends started naturally pulling away from me, and that's okay. You're probably gonna lose some friends. That's to be expected. You're on your own journey, and if they're not gonna make that easier on you, then I'm sorry to say it, but they're not a good friend. Now, I did have friends at the time who they drank, but they supported my journey in stopping drinking, and that's what's important. And I asked of those friends specifically, when we hung out, I was like, do not drink in front of me, because I was weak at the time. It was a temptation for me and I didn't want to be around that temptation. I really carefully evaluated who was in my life. If they were someone that was not going to support that journey and do what they could in their power to make it easier for me, they were not someone I needed in my life. So as I said, I had friends and I asked them, when we hang out, can we please not have alcohol present? Can we please do an activity that isn't revolved around alcohol? Because I am not strong enough to say no. I knew that and I was realistic and honest with myself. Alhamdulillah, I had some really supportive friends who stuck with me and respected that decision of mine, and they really tried their best to support me in whatever way they could. But that would be my first thing. Alcohol can be such a social thing for a lot of people. You need to be really careful who you're around. That doesn't mean that they all have to be sober as well, but they should definitely be supporting your journey and not making it harder for you. The second thing that really helped was mocktails. Now, I love talking about mocktails, so I'm about to get really, really excited. I'm not talking about no orange juice mixed with some soda, okay? I'm talking about real mocktails that mimic actual cocktails. They taste like the real thing, but they don't have any alcohol in them. Like, when I tell you, they literally taste like the real thing. You just don't get that warm, buzzy feeling. And for someone like me who really enjoyed the taste of alcohol and kind of craved it sometimes, this was huge for me. Like, I literally cannot express how helpful these were to helping me kick alcohol. Anytime I was out at a restaurant, or on the rare occasion I was out at a bar with some friends, I was getting mocktails instead of cocktails. It would have been really difficult for me to say, oh, I'm never having this ever again. I craved it. Like, it was something I craved. So being able to have that alternative that didn't contain any alcohol in it, it was a lot easier for me to let go, because I could get everything I loved about it without all the bad side effects. Now, my favorite part I always geek out about when it comes to mocktails, a phenomenon not a lot of people know about. There have been studies done on people who already have an association of drinking alcohol. You know, they have those experiences of drinking alcohol in those social settings. And so their brain actually associates very specific settings with a particular feeling, that is being drunk. So they did these studies on people who were drinking mocktails that had a very similar taste to cocktails. And they were in a very social setting that mimicked settings they had been in previously while drinking. The brain actually tricked the body into thinking it was drunk because of that strong association it had with that whole atmosphere. And I've experienced it firsthand so many times. It's actually why I looked it up in the first place. Then I found out it was real. Because when I started having mocktails in social settings, I would notice I would start feeling really happy and I would laugh a little more and like I would feel a little looser. I would even start getting that dry feeling in my mouth you get after you've been drinking for a while, especially like when you drink water, it tastes and feels so weird in your mouth. Like that would happen to me. I wasn't drinking any alcohol. It's a real thing, you can look it up, but it only happens in people who have drank alcohol before. Especially if you're having trouble kicking alcohol, try this. You'd be very, very surprised. It 100% made going sober so much easier on me. Now, one thing I'll know that's super important, something that I didn't learn early on when I started this journey of finding alternatives, is there will be a lot of brands out there that they remove the alcohol. So the liquor will go through the same process of fermentation, and then they just remove the alcohol from it. You'll see a lot of the labels say like 0 proof, or will be a very, very small percentage of alcohol. As Muslims, this is not for us. I didn't know this when I first started, so that's why I want to share it in this video. Please do your own research into this. At the end of the day, I'm not a scholar. I'm just sharing what I've learned. But those are not permissible for us to drink as Muslims because, one, they have a high probability of having trace amounts of alcohol in them, which we can't have. And two, they're derived from the same process as making alcohol. So a lot of scholars actually rule that even if after they go through that process, they don't have alcohol in them anymore, because they did have alcohol in them at some point and they went through the same process to mimic alcohol, it's impermissible. Again, not a scholar, just sharing information that I've read. So 100%, please do your own research. Don't take my word for it. May Allah forgive me if I'm wrong. And at the end of the day, Allah knows best. With that being said, there are alternatives out there that never had any alcohol in them to begin with. A lot of them still mimic the taste of alcohol, but they never had alcohol in them at any point. And so that's where I'm at right now. And it does limit my options because unfortunately, a lot of alcohol alternatives out there do contain those trace amounts of alcohol, or one started off as alcohol and just had the alcohol removed from them. So I have had to be a little more cautious now that I do know that. I recently got one that's called Ritual. This is not a sponsored ad, by the way. I've had Ritual in a mocktail at a restaurant once, and it was one of the best mocktails I ever had in my life. Tasted like the real thing. They have won a lot of awards, and so there's a lot of hype around it. Like people really have good reviews about it. So I got it, haven't tried it yet. People are interested in me kind of getting a couple of their products and trying them and reviewing them. That's something I'm totally open to doing because I'm still on this journey, right? Even though I've gotten really confident in not drinking alcohol anymore, alhamdulillah, I still get those cravings and I still get those feelings of being left out, especially when I have so many friends and family who aren't Muslim and they drink, and it can be really difficult sometimes on me. So having these alternatives makes it really easy for me to feel included with everyone without feeling so tempted to like grab a drink. And at the end of the day, of course, Allah has made it easy for me, alhamdulillah, to get to where I am now. And yeah, that's what I got for you. That's what's helped me. It's what's helped me get to the point that I'm at now. I know it's hard, but I promise you, once you go long enough without it, you will realize you don't need it. You'll actually be happier without it. Like I said, there are these alternative ways to still get that feeling, to still participate without bringing that sin on yourself, especially without affecting your salah, which 100% is the best motivator for me. Like, it is not worth it, y'all. It is really not worth it. Like, we're literally poisoning our bodies. We're inhibiting our rationality, our ability to make good decisions. And for what? Like, salah is the last thing I want to mess with. It's the second pillar of Islam. I know that so many of us struggle with salah. I know that we live in a society right now where there are a lot of Muslims out there who aren't even praying their 5 daily salah on time. And if that sounds like you, the little salah you are actually praying, you should be making the most of them, making sure that they actually count. If this is something you want to start working on, make the intention, ask Allah to make it easy on you, ask Allah to guide you. There are things that I have sometimes felt like, it's impossible for me to make this change. I will never be able to do this. But Allah is capable of all things. Like, literally nothing is impossible for Him. So make sincere dua to Allah to make this easy for you. And 100% make sure you surround yourself with the right people. That is key in anything when it comes to Islam. I know that this is a heavier kind of like taboo topic that not a lot of people talk about. which is kind of why I wanted to talk about it, open up a conversation about it. Really pray that this reaches the right people. I hope that it helps you, inshallah. If you like this video today, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. I'm new to YouTube, so help me out. Be sure to check out my Instagram as well, and I will see y'all next week. Again, I still don't know how to end this.